version of PrepXtra Live. We are live right now, but we don't know how many people are actually seeing that. But we will have this replay, which most of you are probably watching right now, up. And the reason why we're here is because the 2014 season, boys, is here. It's arrived. We're all feeling it. I'm sure as a lot of you have seen all these ALS Ice Bucket Challenges, Freddie. That's proof that, the players, the teams, everyone is out there already. So, guys, are you ready?
I mean, what a great way to start the season. We're 2 weeks away. I mean, as we tape the show, we're 2 weeks away from the August 28th.
Actually, less than 2 weeks.
Season openers, yeah, a little less than 2 weeks. PrepXtra, the magazine, the 5th annual edition, will debut on August 27th. That's why we want to get this show out there. We want to let everybody know to pick this up on your news racks. It'll be in your home deliveries, and if you want to look at it online, it's already there right now at the Pasadena Star News, San Gabriel Valley Tribune, and Whittier Daily News Prep websites. You'll see it there. It's under Hot Topics, right at the top of the pages. You can look at all of the, Aram's columns, season previews, league previews. There's recruiting news. There's a lot of information in there. And today we're going to talk about some of that stuff that is in that package, Aram.
Yeah, because I'm glad you brought that up, Freddie, because some of it is already making quite a bit of a stir. And that some of it was written by this guy right here. And what we're referring to specifically is the Rio Hondo League and the opening Star News top 5 rankings, which once the season starts, just like all the other zones except for Whittier, will turn into a top 10 ranking. But in the meantime, the opening top 5, Stevie, I don't know what you're doing here, man, if you grew your wise guy boots in the off season or what here. Steve Ramirez has gone out on a limb and picked San Marino to win the Rio Hondo League over Monrovia, and has ranked San Marino one spot ahead of Monrovia in the top 5 rankings. Stevie, obviously when I was editing your story, I was kind of like, Steve, are you sure you want to do this? Are you sure about this? You were pretty steadfast, and you're still here.
I think both teams are really close, but I think the players that San Marino has back, they have more skilled players back from last year's team than Monrovia has, and with Scobie gone, with Deshaun Potts gone, those were 2 key players from Monrovia, and the players they're bringing up, maybe they're just as good, but we don't know that yet.
I mean, there's going to come a time, Aram, when the tables do turn, and maybe Monrovia, those last 4 or 5 years, they hit that ceiling in terms of talent, because I think Steve's right. I mean, Kurt Scobie, he's not walking through that door this year. I mean, there are a few guys that they've had over the years that could just turn the game around, and I don't know if they're there right now. I mean, they're kind of an unproven team, and it's not coming at a very good time. And we'll get into this because they're moving into a new division that isn't going to be nearly as friendly as a Mid-Valley division has been for them the last few years, where they've won 3 championships in a row and been to another final.
Yeah, where they were in the Mid-Valley, I mean, the first 2 rounds were almost like gimme games.
There you go, guys.
You knew they were going to get to the semifinals.
Yeah.
And that's really when the playoffs started, was in the semifinals. Yeah. Now, from the get-go, they're going to be challenged.
Yeah, and they didn't do any favors for the rest of their league, because the rest of the league, Aaron, you could talk about it, they've got to compete in this new division. And for me, this puts them in a division with the San Gabriel Valley's best. And what I mean by that is they've got to face some of the East San Gabriel Valley's best teams, like Charter Oak. Glendora is going to be in that division, a team that's been in Division 2 with Charter Oak. South Hills is in that division, West Covina. So you have to ask yourself if the Rio Hondo League, moving forward, I mean, who cares who finishes first or second in that league? Are these teams going to get out of the first round when the playoffs start? I think that's a bigger question.
Yeah, that's something that I wrote about in this year's preview column, and I think that is a really important place to start when you start looking at this season, everybody. I said the most important parts of this season actually took place months before the season even started, and it's really true. You know, what CIF does with the playoff regroupings and what the individual areas do as far as, you know, constructing their leagues, that sets the tone for everybody's chances. You saw Glendora get sent off to purgatory in the baseline league, and we never heard from them again, really, Freddie, right?
Right.
Yeah. You know, you saw Charter Oak get moved up, you know, into the Inland Division, and we never really heard much about them except for, you know, first round, second round, you know, playoff games, and they were limited. Now, that same thing has happened to Monrovia. And, Freddie, the reason why this happened is because the Rio Honda League had a chance to take care of this problem. Monrovia towers over the rest of the league in football. They're good enough in the other sports to justify being moved to something like the Pacific League. The league did not get them out of there. And when they didn't get them out of there, they left it basically in the hands of CIF to clean up the mess. And CIF did it. Said, okay, fine. If you guys can't come to, you know, an agreement to get them out of here, we're moving them up to the Central Division, and now we're going to see what they're all about. However, I will say this, and this is where, you know, Stevie, you bring up the question marks about Potts and Scobie not being there, and they're good points, obviously. But if you were out there at some of these things this summer, you saw that this is a very, very, very talented, speedy team. The new quarterback, Asaph Zamora, is a transfer from Bishop Amat. He looked fantastic this summer throwing the ball around, and I know it's just passing leagues, and we're going to have to see, you know, how he does when he's got pressure, and how the receivers do when they're lined up against other guys with speed. But this team is still very talented, Freddie. And I
no doubt.
You know, I love it when people make wise guy picks. I really do. So I'm not going to give you any heat for that.
You think
I do. You know,
San Marino was good last year.
They were good, and they're going to be good again this year.
That was getting better. I mean, while Monrovia was losing some stuff, they have guys coming back. Steve, that's why I think Steve picked them to win the league this year. I don't think it's something that's totally out of the question.
Right.
And they play defense.
And the thing on Monrovia, we're going to find immediately how good they are when they play us. When they play San Dimas.
So as we get into this, but what I love about all these new divisions, Aram, and I've argued this over the years, is everything is perspective. We talked about, I mean, it became a hot button topic on these blogs about Monrovia dominating the Mid-Valley Division, and I know a lot of the Monrovia bloggers, a lot of the people that like to take us to task, would talk about them being as good as these teams in the East San Gabriel Valley. And it's a shame to me that they're not the team they once were to have those games and to be in that division. But everything is perspective. I've always argued, even when Charter Oak in like 2006-07 were winning their championships and South Hills was winning theirs and they were dominating, I always thought Glendora was a team that got the short end of the stick, beating the baseline and competing in a tough division, because they would beat those teams sometimes during the year in a regular season game. Then the playoffs would arrive. And Pasquarello back in those days did some magic. He got them into the second round, you know, the round of 8 a couple times. But I think you're one of the teams you're really going to watch this year, and is a team like Glendora coming down from the baseline into the Central. Everyone's talking about Charter Oak now. Hey, they're back in the area where they're going to dominate again. Watch out for the Glendoras, because I think they're going to be great.
I agree with you. They're the number 2 team in the Tribune rankings, Freddie. It's not been any secret, obviously, on my blog how highly I feel about this team and quarterback Matt Fink, who I think is the best QB in the Valley, and I think that's going to kind of be proven this year. But the problem is, if you saw Glendora this year, this summer, and I don't know how this translates to pads, but they're not the fastest team on the outside. So he doesn't maybe have, you know, a type of, you know, receiver set like a Charter Oak has or a Monrovia has.
You may not see everything in the summer that you're going to see in the fall.
Well, that's true. That's true.
We've seen some great teams.
But they have 4 preseason all-area players on that team, so they're very good.
Teams like Arroyo look like they can beat Bishop Amat in the summer if you just look at passing leagues. I mean, that happens all the time. I mean, I wouldn't buy too much into that. Those guys are physical. They've got big guys. And speaking of teams that are going to do great in new divisions, and Steve, Aaron, you could probably talk about this. St. Francis, they are in a super winnable division for them. The Southeast Division, where some of the heavyweights from their league, like Chaminade, they're gone. They're in the Pac-5 and Sarah. I mean, if you're St. Francis right now and you're Jim Bonds, you're smiling at the.
Well, he's kind of playing the.
Of course he is. You didn't say it. I know what you're going to say. Go ahead.
No, he's kind of playing the card that, you know, everyone is just kind of giving us the division. giving us our league. He understands it's not a position that they're kind of used to of being the favorite. They're used to being the hunter trying to track down a Sarah and Chaminade.
It's a whole different perspective.
And now and he's trying to get his players to not kind of read what we're writing or saying. But I mean, I think on paper,
truth is the truth.
On paper, it's all set up for them.
Yeah. Well, again, we go back to talking about what I just mentioned about Monrovia and the division alignments and stuff like that. This is something that happened way long ago in the off season that set the tone for what we're going to see in November and December, and that was St. Francis, who was ready for all intents and purposes on their way to the Pac 5.
Yeah.
They were going to be that filler team for the new look Mission League, and they didn't get that. Instead, they stay put, and now the league that they're in has Cathedral is going to be no joke either.
Yeah.
Salesian, Freddie, this is a team that you really have to watch out for. That team picked up a lot of recruits this year. They are don't think that this was a Salesian team that I think was in Rio Hondo Prep's division last year. They have an. Am I right, Stevie? Weren't they? Yeah. They've picked up a lot of recruits. They're going to be ready to go in there. You know who's stuck in there? Another team that got a lot of influx of transfers this offseason is LaSalle. They're in that league trying to just get into that postseason. And when you talk about the other teams that St. Francis and Cathedral and Salesian and maybe LaSalle would have to face, you're talking the Del Rio League with Lacerna, who Dave Felton ranked number 1 in the Whittier area, which another thing that made me scratch my head. I don't know how they're the number 1 team in the Whittier area, but again, that's
his local player is
Frankie Football's gone. Yeah. Then you have the San Gabriel Valley League with the Compton Dominguezes of the world and Downies and Paramounts, and then you have obviously the Pacific League, which had 2 semifinalists last year in Muir and Burbank. Yeah. So it's not going to be easy for St. Francis. No. They should be one of the favorites, definitely. And you couldn't really say that last year when they were in, what was it, Stevie, the Western Division?
Yeah. It's not as difficult as the Western Division.
It's right.
At the top.
Right.
And I said the teams at the top.
I'm going to give you a team that should be in the top 4 in the new look Southeast Division.
Who?
And you're about to fall off your chairs.
Don't say Pasadena.
No, not Pasadena, but I do
that
think
would make me fall off my chair.
I do think they may make a playoff push this year. Like not as far as like going far, but maybe get in, because obviously that league's going to go through Burbank. Thank you, Burbank and Muir. You ready?
Yeah.
You're ready. La Mirada.
La Mirada.
Yes.
Yeah. We went through that last year.
Right, that's why I said
we bought the Mike Machete Kool-Aid, and we saw what happened with that. I'm taking a wait and see from La Mirada.
Can I explain?
I'm not jumping on any of that.
That's fine. You can wait and see. And you are going to see. This team, I don't think anybody, Freddie, reloaded better than they did via the transfer. They got Christian Lara, the QB from Santa Fe, now at quarterback. That's a huge upgrade from the injury problems and the inexperience problems they had there last year. This was a team that was very slow last year, so they get a receiver from Servite named Tony Brown, who's going to be on the cover of our PrepXtra magazine. He's got 10 offers or so already. And he's going to help on the back end of that defense as well. Yeah. They get a kid, his last name is Caggiano. He's from St. John Bosco. Maybe not good enough to cut it again, at the number 1 team in the country, St. John Bosco. But here at La Mirada, he's going to speed them up. He's looked very good. Yeah. They've made the necessary improvements, Fred.
Well,
with Laura at QB,
they've got the pieces. This is on the coaching staff to make this happen. It really is. I mean, it's on the coaching staff, and I love Coach Mike Machete, one of the favorite guys I've ever had to cover. I say it again, when he was at Mount Sac, one of the most competitive guys I'd ever been around, and I'm sure that rubs off on all those players. But hey, they've got to make it happen on the field.
Right, you're right.
And they had players last year.
They
had some injuries. Right,
they had players last year, but those guys, not all of them lived up to their billing.
Skilled positions,
and not all of them lived up to their billing. If you were at that mirror game,
Okay.
Well, my only question would be the players they've kind of brought in, especially the quarterback Lara, are not the kind of players that their system has been the last.
No.
The last. It would be like kind of Wisconsin,
right?
Switching to the spread offense.
Right. I don't think they're going to spread, but I know what you're saying. But Wisconsin got Russell Wilson in, and he wasn't really, the kind of QB Wisconsin usually has, and they had a great year.
Yeah, that's true.
So, and Laura is the kind of guy that, unlike the guys they had there last year, under duress, he can make things happen. Mm-hmm. So, I'm being serious, Fred. I think I know Felton picked them number 3 in the Suburban League. He's crazy.
Do you have the Daily News top 5?
They're going to win the Suburban League.
You want to call that up while we're talking here? Steve, you can call that up.
I can kind of tell you it off the top of my head.
Okay.
Lacerna's 1.
Okay.
Obviously no Frankie football, but I still think they'll probably win the Del Rio League. So there you have it, and that'll probably get them a very high seed in the Southeast playoffs. Number 2 was La Habra, okay, and we kind of stopped talking about La Habra a lot, but we shouldn't, Freddie. I mean that's
isn't La Habra? Are they in the Central Division this year?
No, they're not. Wouldn't that be the answer?
I think they're still in the Southwest.
Right.
Okay.
And the Southwest got boosted up quite a bit last year, as well as far as competition. They put some teams that were formerly in higher divisions in there, and even still though, La Habra was a high seed, and I think they tanked in the first round, right, or the second round?
I think it was the second round.
Yeah, they went out way earlier than anyone would have thought, but. La Habra's a team that beat La Mirada last year, so I mean I can understand why they always do well. I think they'll be a dangerous team. Steve, you're having a hard time loading this.
Yeah, my internet's kind of
slow.
Okay, so we'll get you
to Lucerna.
Number 1.
Lucerna 1.
We have La Habra 2.
La Mirada
3.
All the laws.
Okay, 4.
El Rancho 4. That's kind of a...
Pico Rivera High School, number 4.
And California.
California, number 5.
And Cal, number 5.
Santa Fe. Interesting.
I don't know. I get the feeling that 4 and 5 in those rankings are going to musical chair.
It's always about the laws in Whittier, isn't it? La Habra,
the last few years, it's been that way. Yeah.
Right. Hey, Freddie, you know what? We should mention this. The Whittier area, as far as hits and views and stuff like that, and fan readership and interaction. It's better than the Star News area. I don't know why, but those people get into it very, very well down there.
And we put this edition out, the PrepXtra football preview, online already. It's been out. It's been out a couple of days. We're teasing it out. Mm-hmm. We want people to go online and read all these stories. It got a lot of views that first couple of days. I mean, there's a lot of interest, and I want to let everyone know there are some changes in Whittier this year. Dave Felton, who was the prep editor last year, he helped us work in the magazine. He's going to be moving to our desk and helping us out. And what we are really now is the SGVN crew. I mean, between Aram, Steve, myself, and Keith Lair, we cover our 3 flagship newspapers, the Pasadena Star News, San Gabriel Valley Tribune, and Whittier. So there's no designated Whittier guy, Tribune guy, Pasadena guy. We're your guys. Aram is a football writer. You got questions about football, you have some stories that you think need to be written, go ahead and email Aram, email myself, email Steve, whatever you guys got. We'll take care of it over there. And we'll be running their blogs, we'll be posting stories, so send them our way. We're still going to have a lot of fun with it. I'll be posting a lot of Whittier stuff on my blog as well. And of course, you've got Aram, who's been writing about football for the SGVN now for a couple of years. So,
but we do realize, we do realize there's readership there, and we're not trying to cut you guys out. And hopefully, you'll see that this season because we know you're very into it.
And all of our areas are getting used to this now. When you think of San Gabriel Valley Tribune, we're not writing about teams just in that specific circulation area.
Right.
We look at the San Gabriel Valley, which is really the Star News and the Tribune in Whittier. This is our little area right here. These 3 zones. Our leagues play each other. The teams know each other. And look, this isn't a print world anymore. This is a digital world. So when you think of Southern California area, you think of Whittier, you think of Pasadena. So we want to put those stories on all 3 of the web pages and all the newspapers so you can read about all of them.
Freddie's saying there's no boundaries.
There are no boundaries.
But why wouldn't, now the way the divisions are set up, why wouldn't someone at La Mirada want to read about a St. Francis who they may see in the postseason or Mirror?
And we think it's fun and it creates a lot of interest, a lot of debating when we talk about rankings. So this is how it's going to be moving forward. I mean, Whittier isn't limited to just schools in the Whittier area. And I think people, Aram, they think more broader than that anyway. I don't think when they think Whittier, growing up today, that they're thinking, just Whittier schools. I think they're looking beyond that. I think everyone kind of even looks at the southern section as this is our home, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah. Right.
I mean, that's why you have a Max Preps and all of these other things. I mean, Southern California. This is the world we live in now.
Freddie, you could be living in Chicago, Illinois, and just because you have an internet connection and follow, us on Twitter or go to the blogs and see Mike the Cousin, you might feel like you're...
Who's one of our biggest bloggers at Pass?
No, New York, yeah. You might feel like you're actually in West Covina, even though you're sitting in snow in Illinois.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you're right. Yeah. The internet has made it so there's no boundaries, and that's true. Everything you said there. Okay, so I think we're done really talking about Whittier, the Pasadena area, as far as the ranking.
You know off the top of your head?
Pass?
Yeah, Pasadena.
I could tell you St. Francis absolutely
St. Francis
would have to be number
1, Muir number 2, 3, what Aaron has mentioned, San Marino, 4, Monrovia, and 5, LaSalle.
No Rio Hondo Prep, okay.
No.
LaSalle, no Maranatha, Steve Bogan. Steve Bogan is over at Maranatha, Aaron. You've talked to him.
Maranatha, they have some players, Freddie, and obviously, Judo Oliva did a great job with them last year. They won their league. They lost in the first round of the playoffs, but
2 years in a row that team lost in the first round of the playoffs.
I
don't know what it is about them. They look great in the regular season, and then they just tank.
Well, what I'm trying to say though is that Jude did a very good job there, and Bogan obviously is a very good coach in his own right, one of the best we've ever had. But, their numbers are a little bit down, even though if you look at, who they have at quarterback, if you look at who they have at running back and some of their receivers, these guys are fantastic. Yeah. But the roster is smallish, in the 30s, that type of thing. So you wonder if that's going to catch up to them. But I'd imagine just like kind of the 4-5 area, when we get into the regular season and this Star News ranking becomes a top 10 instead of a top 5, I'm sure you'll see Maranatha in there, and they may move all the way up to 5 because, Freddie, their schedule is ridiculously weak. I mean, if you look at it, they're not playing any team, I think, in the non-league, or maybe one team that had a winning record last year.
When's the last time Steve Bogan's seen a schedule like this?
Yeah, no, really. I mean, you ought to look at it. It's something. It's something to see. So they have a chance to pick up momentum before they get into league play. But I don't think really other than what we kind of talked about here, there's any surprises except that there's kind of a very, I don't want to say a big-time name, but a big name for that area that's kind of missing out of the top 5, and you wonder if they'll be ranked in the top 10, and that's Arcadia.
Yeah, well, they were kind of a little bit... In fact, they've been down the last couple of years.
Right.
Since I think
Malante left? Or
I think when La Mirada beat him in the quarters a couple years ago.
Right.
It was a very good team. Actually, it's about 3 years ago.
Used to be they'd be in every top 5 guaranteed to start the season.
And they've kind of struggled the last...
Well, that loss to Rio Hondo Prep, remember, to start the season 2 years ago?
It wasn't only a loss.
It was like a shutout, right?
No, it was like
19-6 or something?
It was like 29-6 or something.
They lost to a school with a student population of 6.
And... they lost, actually, 4 of their players transferred to LaSalle.
LaSalle, right. Yeah, lean times there.
I mean, is Arcadia a football school anymore?
No.
I think they're as much a football school as Temple City is still a football
school.
Oh,
that hurts. Wow, Freddie. Had to go there. School. Thank you very much.
I mean, these are schools, these were so 1990, 80, and 70s.
Thank you very much.
They're not football schools of today.
I
think the only one in that demographic, that area, and I use demographic loosely, is San Marino.
Exactly right.
They're the only one that in the middle of that.
Why them? That's my question to you. Why, if Temple City and Arcadia want to use the demographic card or whatever as to why they're struggling, San Marino went through some lean years, and now they're back.
Yeah.
And San Marino still loses a lot of players and a lot of good athletes in the area that end up going to Loyola or other private schools around, and yet they're winning at a consistent level. Why them?
Are these homegrown San Marino kids?
Yeah, they're homegrown. I mean, it's very hard to transfer to San Marino. You obviously can't really move into the area too well.
They're one of the best academic public schools that there is.
Right. There's no real apartment building to kind of make a easy move into.
You either have to have 800,000 or you don't.
800,000 might get you by the San Gabriel Country Club.
Okay. She was looking at the school districts. They're looking at. I have kids now that I have a ready-made family.
Right.
And she was talking about school districts districts, and she's looking at all the games. She goes, "We got to get ourselves into San Marino."
Right.
I said, "Good luck finding something over in San Marino."
Yeah,
That's never going to happen.
And the reason
Not
why,
at the Tribune.
right? The reasons why San Marino and why Arcadia are so up there in terms of test scores and all that stuff is part of the reason why you've seen them become not as good in certain sports but better in others in recent years. And I'm sure everyone catches my drift here. But San Marino has sort of gotten up, dusted itself off, and revived the football program, whereas Temple City continues to fall further and further and further. They have a new coach again this year. Arcadia is obviously falling. You're not going to convince a good Arcadia football player to not go to Monrovia now if he lives in that area. It's just not going to happen.
Or in this case, LaSalle.
LaSalle costs money. So. Yeah, kind of sad to see Arcadia fall on hard times because a lot of us at the outset of our careers or at some point in our careers there were a lot of big time football games and players there, and you don't see that right now.
Well, but Temple City, like you said, Temple City's probably
Temple City as well.
Could say it was one of the biggest names in the area for what they did in the early 70s.
Temple City, Los Altos, Bishop Mott, three biggest football schools.
But you see, even Los Altos, though, has picked itself up and dusted itself off.
Yeah, they have.
And Los Altos is back now, and we're going to get to that in a second. But the last thing I want to say...
I wouldn't say Los Altos is back. I would say they're on their way to proving that they're back. They haven't proved they're back
They're clearly one of the top 10 teams in the Tribune area now. Are they back to winning CIF championships? No. But they are...
That's what I mean when you say they're back. There's the Los Altos that is Los Altos, and there's a team fighting to prove that they're on their way back.
But they're certainly viable, and they're not the 0-10 or 1-9 teams that they were. But before we move on, I just want to say one more thing. This is a team that I'm very high on this year, Pasadena. I think Pasadena is going to have a very good year this year offensively.
I'm going to fall off my chair right now.
Okay. They're going to move the ball on some people. That receiver Tyreek Adams is outstanding. I mean, he is as a basketball player, he's sick. He's one of the most athletic guys around, and they got the transfer from Downey and at quarterback Jorge Reyna. Are they going to
end the 50-year streak with Muir?
No.
Well, wasn't that game close last year, Freddie? We were kind of sweating it because we didn't really staff it as well as we should have, and we start seeing all these scores
started panicking. We said, "This is going to the greatest upset in San Gabriel Valley history between two of the biggest rivals." And we've got a part-timer there, scrambling his brain trying to write that story. And
that would have been.
It didn't happen.
Yeah, it was the same night as the San Marino Monrovia.
Right, that was a championship night.
It was that's not only there was I think they were the top 1 and 3 teams in the or 2 and 3.
Tribune side. Okay, Tribune top 5. That obviously we're going to say this again. It's going to extend back out to 10 when the season starts, and Freddie will take it over, I believe.
You go ahead, Aaron. You made this top 5.
Well, I made this top 5, but unlike years past, we're not going to have much to argue with because Amat is number 1.
I hear Aaron say it. Bishop Amat is number 1.
Yeah, they're number 1. Yeah. There's no doubt about that. But again, as I always say, the caveat is, saying they're number 1 over, Charter Oak and Glendora and all that stuff is nice. It might.
Who's number 2, Aaron?
Well, we already talked about that. But let's continue on Bishop Amat. What really matters with them is what happens once they get into league and then hopefully into the CIF playoffs. Freddie, their league is disgusting.
Yeah.
I mean, Chaminade and Chaminade, Sarah, Notre Dame, Alemany, Loyola. I might be missing Crespi. Yeah. All right. Well, Crespi they can handle.
Yeah.
They always do.
Thanks, James.
But I don't know how you sit there and like I don't know what you do. I mean, like how do you get through that league?
Yeah.
No one's going to go undefeated in that league.
And when you look at it, 7 teams, and all 7 of the teams are
3 playoff spots.
You got 3 playoff spots, and look. I've said this from the beginning since Coach Steve Haggerty's got there, since he's been there, Aaron. I think he's a good coach. They have a great staff, and they get as much out of their kids as possible. I really do. But I think Aram's mentioned this a lot over the years. I think this is the first year I'm going to start to really agree with him somewhat, where maybe that staff has reached their ceiling in terms of not coaching talent, but the kind of a talent they can attract to that campus. And I don't know if that is because of financial reasons or packages that they have for players, but
No, it's not that.
They still do not. When you look at some of the teams in the Pac-5 where they're going to compete or in their division, man, you hear about these transfers. You hear about all these guys going D1. You don't see that. You don't read about it. We don't write about it a lot at Bishop Amat. And at some point, is this coaching staff going to be able to attract, I'm not saying recruit, attract players to Bishop Amat, which to me has one of the greatest history, greatest fan bases in Southern California. Are they going to be able to attract them there the way that other schools have? And as great as the staff is at coaching them up, Aaron, they haven't been able to raise that over the years. They haven't attracted.
They haven't taken the next step.
And this year,
at least in 15 to 16 years.
Yeah, and this year they supposedly have some of the guys in the offensive and defensive lines that maybe can get them there. I don't think the impact players are as great as they've been in the past.
Whoa.
I mean, Camargo's going to be a pretty good running back. Their best players, impact guys, are juniors.
Right.
Sidney and Vons.
Well,
the quarterback is still kind of untested.
Okay.
Go ahead.
All right. So, let's just.
Trayvon Sidney, number one junior quarterback in the country.
Yes. Okay. So. You talk about Amat not having, those. You read about the other Pac-5 schools and all these top-notch recruits, and you're right. Up until this year, Amat hasn't had that type. But now, finally, there's guys playing on the outside with offers from USC and UCLA and all these, Pac-5 schools and other places. That's a major difference. And then you have a guy like Camargo, who has offers from Washington State, Stanford, those types of schools. Big time grades, big time player. But his best position and what he's probably going to play in college is linebacker. They're going to use him at running back, and I saw him at practice. He's very difficult to tackle. He's maybe not a game breaker, but he's very difficult to tackle, and he can certainly get them 15, 20 yards, on down to 10 or 5 yards a pop. No doubt about that. So all those things, Freddie, are starting to come together. This is probably top to bottom the most talented Amat team.
So?
Yes. Yeah. I saw them the other day at practice. Most talented Amat team that we've seen. If you kind of look in their back seven, you can see there's athletes there now to kind of maybe match up to the Alamanis and the other, passing teams out there that have given Amat trouble in the past. They are very, very talented. The line play, a little bit bigger than usual. Some nice players there. The defensive line's getting that kid that we've seen all the trench hog videos of. He'll be starting this year. Andrew Vasquez. His dad's Eddie and he's Andrew.
Are they talented enough to compete in this league with this coaching staff that can push them over the top?
Easily talented enough to compete.
It's that can compete for a league title?
Look, I don't want to speak in such certain platitudes because we don't cover the other teams. But from what I've seen of these other teams, we have. What I've seen of these other teams in years past, yes, I would venture to say Amat's just as talented. If not more talent. They can match up. When you can stick a Trayvon Sidney on somebody on the outside, Alamani's best receiver, Holmes, or, some speedster at Sarah, you now all of a sudden you can match up better. Not only that, Freddie, Tyler Vaughns, I was talking to Haggerty, and I've heard this from a lot of people this summer. He has really, really taken the next step. Last year, all the time he wasn't maybe sure where he was going. He made some spectacular plays. This is a guy that, makes one-handed, highlight reel grabs. He has really gone, up another notch. And that guy, he may be unstoppable if the new quarterback, Damian Garcia, can get him the ball. Yeah. That's the key. They have a new QB. You don't want to be...
And these guys were studs as sophomores, and you make that big leap your junior
And the senior class is a very good senior class. Yeah. Camargo was, when they were freshmen, Camargo was the QB.
And that's my whole point. I felt like the last couple years that with this staff, the honeymoon period is long over, and you feel the anxiousness now. This is like a Laker fan base to me. They don't want to compete for the 8th seed. They want to compete for championships. Yeah. They don't want to compete just to make the playoffs. They want to compete for league titles.
But you can,
and at some point, early on when Haggerty was there, they right when he got the team, right from the bat, they were fighting for league titles.
Right.
And it seems like they've taken steps back the past couple of years. I think that team's getting better, but they've got to take those steps forward again, or
that's not going to happen.
They're going to start to get anxious again.
The only way that's going to happen is because, like you said, this isn't a coaching staff that recruits or attracts. They're not going to get out there like a Servite and a St. John Bosco, and those people can deny that they do that all they want, but we all know they do.
Or even a Sarah, really.
Okay, fine. Those schools attract, and They're very out there in their communities and their talent pools. Amat is as steadfast. Haggerty is not going to do that. So as I've written in the past before, the only way it's going to happen, Freddie, is if they win and the winning attracts the talent on its own.
Right.
And this might be the year, this might be the class to do it, because like I've said before, when you judge Amat's football success, at least for me, and I think a lot of other people feel this way, you judge it in CIF championships and top recruits.
I think you're totally
there may not be a championship. There may not be a CIF championship because this division is stacked. But people want to go see a guy they're going to see in 1 or 2 years at USC or UCLA, and this team has quite a few of them.
I mean,
and so on that level, they are back.
I really do agree with you, Aaron. The attraction is going to be when you do win, when you do go deep in the playoffs.
Right.
People are they're going to want to go there. They're going to pay whatever you pay at. I mean, it's not the most expensive private school.
No.
So you're right. They've got to turn that corner with what they get at some point. And maybe this is the year.
Turning the corner to me, Freddie, really seriously in that division, coming out of that league, is making the semifinals. If they do that, to me, that's like hanging a banner. I know it's not for them, but I'm saying to get Amat into the semis would be huge. And I think this team is actually very capable of it.
Yeah.
At least in this century, I don't think they have been.
I tell you what, I'm not well versed in Santa Margarita, and I know they have KJ Costello at QB. I think a lot of people are going to learn something about Amat that opening Friday night in a week and a half from now.
Santa Margarita.
Yeah, I think, and it'll be nice.
They head to Texas the following week.
Right, but it'll be nice that this takes place in the heart of Orange County, so that all the people down there can see just what Amat's all about and what they're working with. Because I get the feeling this is going to be a major ass whipping. I really do think that. I think Amat is going to take care of Santa Margaret. And I know I just put the bulletin board on them, but I don't speak for Amat, so they remember that, Eagles.
I've never heard you talk this way about Amat.
You've seen Servite come up here and get their butt kicked in the start of the season.
Yeah.
You've seen Santa Margarita, I think, did it last year. And I think
every year they have that win, that big win.
Well, this one's going to take place down in Orange County, so I think that's going to happen.
They got to start beating the Alleghenies, teams they can't beat.
What you're saying basically is they got to start winning in November. And not September. But for the most part, this is going to be a nice August win. That's what I'm saying, and we'll get into that next week. Okay, fine. We can go to number 2, Glendora. That's where I rank number 2. A lot of people are like, "What are you talking about? They're not fast enough. They have all these things." Yeah, you're right. They are kind of a big, slow, plodding team, except that the quarterback himself is very fast. He can run the ball. He can put the ball just about anywhere. He's got a ridiculous arm. They got a lot of guys back on defense, including the coach's son, Zach Llewellyn, and Ryan de Guzman. I mean, they got guys back on defense that they're going to be very capable, and they're going to have some size, Freddie. They have a 6'5", 330-pound offensive tackle who was all area last year. He's back, Ben Northup. They should have some kind of running game. Real simply, if they get some kind of game breakers at running back or receiver or both, to me, they're not losing a Palomares League game this year. You can get that out of your mind. I'm sorry, South Hills or Ayala or whoever. Glendora's not losing a Palomares League game this year. And I think they're probably earmarked for the semifinals in the Central or beyond.
And that's great for Glendora because I think they deserve that opportunity. Being overmatched in a division they really never should have been in all of these years. So I think you're absolutely right.
They beat Upland last year. They beat Charter Oak last year.
The Palomares and the Hacienda League. Right. These are two. Charter Oak obviously is your number 3 team, right?
Yes.
Yeah. You got Charter Oak as number 3. I mean, they're back in familiar surroundings in really a league that they should dominate. I mean, because I think you don't think so?
Not this year.
Who's gonna compete?
Los Altos and West Covina. I think can and probably will give them games.
For our Kool-Aid that
what?
He always says
no. He hasn't really said that. I mean, he will say it, but
he said. I think he said you're crazy for making them a favorite right away.
Right, I know what you're talking about. That's in the magazine.
They reload like nobody reloads. I mean, they always do. They always have talent. Are you saying they don't have that this year?
I'm not saying they don't have talent, but I'm saying this is the most concerned I've been about them in quite a while. Yeah, because they lost all those specimens. Yeah, even when they started 0-4 last year.
Yeah.
They lost all those specimens on the defensive line. I think there's 1 or 2 starters back on the defense. The QBs are going to either be a sophomore or a junior. They have Zion Eccles, which in a lot of games he's going to give them the best player on the field, and that's great. And they have some young guys at the receiver spots that are really going to develop. And they have a kid, I think his name is Brian Castile. He was a freshman last year. Freddie, he's the next coming. He'll be up on varsity. I don't know what kind of impact he'll have as a sophomore. Charter Oak by November will be much better than Charter Oak in September. Right, but Charter Oak's got to play Glendora in the Mayor's Trophy game at Citrus College on a Thursday night where everybody can see it. And maybe Charter Oak's speed will give them problems. That's kind of the thing here. Is Los Altos along the offensive and defensive line enough to push Charter Oak around and win that game? Are they fast enough elsewhere to do something with that? Same question with Glendora. But will Charter Oak just speed by them? That's the question. These teams all seem to have what the other one doesn't.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
I think it comes down to a lot of times, and it's what I like about Bishop Lamont when they play other area teams. I really think these teams have talent. I think it comes down to coaches and that experience where Almont coaching staff has it, and I think Charter Oak against these light teams, talk about light players. This is nothing against Coach Ziola over at Los Altos. I just think that Charter Oak has more experience. When you think of, you got Lou Farrar leading the way, you got a Dom Farrar running the offense, and you've got Coach on the defense,
Roger Lehigh
on defense. And these guys have been there each more than a decade, and they're great coaches.
Right.
You match wits with those guys. You give them talent. I've just seen it over the years when they were in that division, whether they were playing Roddy Layton when you thought he had a great team at Diamond Ranch, or whoever. When they get in those big games where they're ready to go like this and match wits and go at them, they win those games, and I think they'll do it again.
They're able to recognize things and make adjustments on the fly. Where some of the coaches who haven't been together, maybe they're a little bit slow at doing that.
But to say that takes away from the fact that they're going to be playing a Mike Majori who's won 3 CIF championships. Him and his staff, Coach Murphy. Those guys are no slouches. I mean, they can put something together, and Ziola obviously knows what he's doing by putting together the run that he has at Los Altos. Giving them CPR and bringing them back to where they are. Charter Oak's my favorite. Obviously, they're number 3, and by the end of the season, I think this is a semifinal team in the Central. Yeah. But they're just a little suspect to me at quarterback and on the lines at this point. To sit there and say, hey, they're an overwhelming favorite, because I think Glendora, Los Altos, West Covina can all bang with them.
Who is their starting quarterback?
Well, they're choosing between Corey Brown's little brother, Camden Brown, who got playing time last year, and he's a nice looking kid, and a kid that was the freshman QB last year who's good. I think his name's Brett Clementson. And he's very good. They both traded off.
In all the years I've covered Charter Oak, or at least that Don Farrar's been there, he's one of the great at grooming and developing quarterbacks. So I'm sure whoever's going to be there, he's a good signal caller. He's good at what he does.
Yes.
So I never worry about the quarterback position at Charter Oak in that division. Now, if you're going to compete in the Inland Division, different story. You think Travis Santiago might have been their greatest quarterback ever.
I think he's the best quarterback in the Valley.
When you take that to Inland Division,
best QB I've covered.
He stayed here in those divisions where you just said West Covina won 3 championships.
Yes.
West Covina doesn't win those championships. Travis Santiago's in that division.
But this isn't that team.
No.
I mean, this Charter Oak, I don't think they're as talented as those previous Charter Oak teams.
They don't have a quarterback who will get the job done. He may not be one of their greatest.
Right. But by next year, when you're talking Zion Eccles' senior year, and these QBs have 1 year under their belt, and you have Castile now a junior, they're going to be scary, and no one will probably touch them. But if they're vulnerable, Freddie, this would be the year that they're vulnerable. And if they are vulnerable, it's going to be more September-ish and October-ish than November and maybe December. We'll see what happens. They're 3 for me.
Who's 4 and 5?
4 is, we talked about them, Los Altos. Okay. Outstanding offensive and defensive lines. We saw
loves him some Los Altos.
Right, and they won 9 games last year. They had a very nice year. Here's the thing with Los Altos. They're replacing their QB, but the kid that's stepping in, Lorenzo Silva, he's a big kid. He's got talent. They got a transfer. They're replacing their leading rusher, Estuardo Marcos. They're replacing him, but they got a transfer from Bishop Amat, who's very good. His name escapes me, but he's going to be very good. They have a freshman team last year, Freddie, that was outstanding. Those guys are all sophomores. Some of them are up playing a bigger role. Where they have to get better, though, is speed-wise. Mir ran them out of the park, and Mir was playing with a backup QB in the playoffs last year in the second round. So you wonder what a Charter Oak would do to them as well if Charter Oak can handle them at the line of scrimmage.
So who has to be 5? San Dimas?
Yes, San Dimas is number 5. I don't know how they're going to fare against their non-league like last year.
Mid-Valley Division trophy? Can we just give it to them now? Can we?
No, you can't do that.
Well, there's a team called Pomona who looks really good.
I watched that game against Pomona.
Pomona and Paraclete. Pomona and Paraclete
in that game.
Yeah, Stevie's going out there for the Paraclete game this year. Pomona and Paraclete, they look capable, but San Dimas destroyed Pomona last year, Fred, with all that speed. I think Pomona had a hard time figuring out how to stop the Wingsy, and they're going to have that trouble. What we need to see is starting, a week and a half from now against Monrovia, another fast team.
I'll be there.
Yeah, you'll be there. It's a great game.
Well, Coach Z told me that he thinks this defense that he has couldn't be the best defense that he's had.
I think he's going to be 100% right.
I like this, but I'm covering that game not as good luck charm Stevie Ramirez here. So
where am I?
What's going to happen in that game?
I want to say though,
here because we're the SGVN. We cover everybody, so we got to spread ourselves out.
Well, you're
watching Diamond Bar.
That's a very good game.
Diamond Bar, new coaching staff over there.
Yeah,
that's something else.
You'll get to see Noodles' senior year debut, but you'll also get to see Montebello, who's probably going to win the Almont League this year.
Let's beat Gonzalez.
But back to just finish the thought here on San Dimas, Freddie. When we were out there, I was looking around at the talent that they had. They've got, if you're judging by bodies and frames and frame types, they've got quite a bit more talent than they've had these past few years. That's no joke. Now, these guys, are they experienced? No, maybe not. The defense is, a guy like Josiah Erickson, who was, all-area linebacker last year as a sophomore. He's going to be fantastic. They got a lot of guys back on defense, but they are breaking in a new QB. They are going to be breaking in a new feature back, which never seems to be a problem for them. It's just a plug-and-play offense.
Same with
we got to see, though, how they do against this non-league, because right now people are talking like you are. Okay, they won the Mid-Valley Division, and we're starting to talk about them like Monrovia, but people with Monrovia wanted to see how do you do San Dimas against, teams that aren't in your division. We don't care how you do against Arroyo.
I think that argument's been answered the last few years.
No, it wasn't. They didn't win a game in non-league last year.
What I'm saying is, San Dimas can compete in that game. If they lose, I won't be surprised. I'm just talking about when they get to their division.
And compete in what game?
San Dimas. When they get to their league, they become San Dimas.
Yeah. But for them to offer the non-league this year like they did last year isn't going to be acceptable. If they go on and win CIF...
if they go on and win CIF, it'll become acceptable.
Yeah, it'll be nice, but people will still be looking back saying, but look what you did in the non-league. You weren't ready, to play Monrovia or Los Altos or these teams that they've lined up.
But the thing the general feeling that I've always received from San Dimas, and it's a little different from Monrovia, is they don't expect that. They're not out there trying to say we're as good as Charter Oak right now, or that we can beat these schools.
I think they understand who they are,
right?
And in their little world of the Mid Valley, they know they can compete, and they play these other teams.
Yeah, that would be like Rio
try to get better.
Prep, losing a few of these games, they challenge themselves, but once they get back in their league and division, they win it. They're Rio Hondo Prep. I think Monrovia had an identity crisis with that, where they thought, we would get in arguments that they thought, hey, we can go beat Bishop Amat. We can go beat, Rancho Cucamonga. That was never going to happen. That was never going to happen.
Yeah.
St. Francis
They beat St. Francis,
though. Yeah, they beat them the first year. They did beat them that 1 year. And I think that was that team was really at their peak. And I think they've had good teams. Yeah. But I don't think they're at that level with those teams like Charter Oak, and the good teams we've seen on the east side of the San Gabriel Valley.
Right.
And, of course, not Bishop Amat. I really
don't.
San Dimas has never said, give us that game with Amat. We'll show them we can beat them.
You know me.
Mexico's not going to do that.
You know me. I've said, there are years where there are teams in the valley that can beat Bishop Amat, years in the past. But that was when guys like Gano and Farrar were attracting juggernaut-type teams.
Gano.
That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen this year.
High School.
Gano's at Wilson, and hey, there's a guy that's going to be looking to knock off San Dimas in that
here's
Via
a guy,
league.
Everything that I hear about Wilson is from Coach Gano. They have zero talent. Don't count on us. I don't want to believe it. I think they're going to be better than we think they're going to be. I think Coach Gano is really playing everything down right now, and I really do think, are they going to beat San Dimas and win the Valley Vista League? No, I don't think so. But I think they're going to fight for that second and third spot. And I think Baldwin Park is another team. I'm buying the Kool-Aid on.
But they're in the Montview League.
They're in the Montview League.
Yeah, so
that's right. Baldwin Park,
and that's good news for Wilson, because I think
Yeah.
Baldwin Park's going to be very good this year. And that Montview League, Duarte, Azusa, Baldwin Park. We got some pretty.
There's a big one.
We got some pretty brash coaches in that league now.
And you talked about going back to the beginning. This year was shaped a few months ago.
Yes.
I'll tell you what. That whole Baldwin Park to the Montview. You know how that happened?
No.
I was at that final league meeting. And
but I'd like to know.
It still boggles my mind today. When they made the final votes, Baldwin Park was in the Valley Vista, and they had thrown Nogales to the Montview. Right? It was done. And all of a sudden, over at
Bruce Alley got up
and said, "We didn't ask for that. We didn't ask for that." Right? And he asked for a revote. He actually made an agreement, asked Baldwin Park, "Do you guys really want to go here? We'll switch with you." And they switched. And they said, "Let's do a revote." These two guys agreed on it. They revoted. That's how Baldwin Park got gifted to the Montview League, where now they get to go against teams like Sierra Vista, and Azusa. And Nogales, think about this. This is for all sports. Nogales, which would have probably been more competitive in football, obviously. But think about how they would have done in baseball.
Right.
Think about how they would have done in all these other sports.
Basketball,
if they'd stayed in the Montview. That move, to me, didn't make life any easier.
No.
For Nogales.
Why wouldn't you take relief when you need relief? Why wouldn't you take relief, get good for a few years, Freddie, and well, Coach Alley, we'll have to give him some heat about that.
That's Coach Alley. I think they built a lot of friendships in that league.
Yeah.
The scheduling works easy.
Yeah.
It's only that.
But I think
the idea of them playing Roland in league games.
I know, but I respect Coach Alley, but I think that was a bad move for Nogales.
Look, man, I'm going to tell you something about the Montview League. You got some coaches in there now that have some serious swag. When you talk about Travis Brown at Duarte and Daniel Algatis at Baldwin Park already saying, we want to be the number one team in the Valley.
I like how he's coming out.
He's very brash. He was that way as a player.
Yeah.
He's a very confident guy. Freddie, he's bringing in a coach, or he's brought in a coaching staff, like Mikey Edwards from Glendora.
Guys that you're going to respect, that you're going to listen to.
Yeah, and he's going to bring in some even bigger names next year. And Travis Brown I think by the time he's done this year and next year, Travis Brown is going to have like a class, a coaching staff that's going to be all kinds of former Los Altos standouts.
Yeah.
You have a real chance to see those programs with those guys. They have swag, Fred.
Yeah.
These guys, they're going to really try and
swag. What they need is discipline. When you have
the coaches?
Like no.
Oh.
The players.
Well, I'm sure they will, but the coaches have swag.
Yeah, the coaches have swag. No, I'm saying the players too. I think that's a prideful area over there. That's a football area, Baldwin Park.
Yeah.
And I think when they're coached up and they're disciplined, they get a lot. It's the same thing as Azusa. You saw what happened when a coaching staff has respect of their players.
Right.
They could do great things. And I think Baldwin Park has the chance now this year to do that.
Now, who knew?
Well, plus with Algatis, when he went to Mount Sac, they hadn't become the monster that they've become now.
Right.
And he kind of saw how they were built.
Right.
And I think he feels he can do.
But he's a confident guy, man.
Yeah.
And he's that confident is gonna trickle down to the players. And they've gotten some guys in, Fred. They've got some guys this year. Baldwin Park's in my all-encompassing SGVN top 25. I think they're going to make a run in the playoffs. I think they're going to sweep that league.
Yeah.
I think they're going to beat Duarte. I know Travis Brown said there's not a team out there that can stop us in our league. I'm sure Azusa and Baldwin Park love hearing that. But I still think Baldwin Park's going to beat them. Yeah. And who knew that Joe Scherf is now like the Bill Snyder of that league?
Yeah.
Like, the classy old guy. I mean, that's Joe Scherf we're talking about. I'm sure he's not liking hearing all this stuff.
Greatest facial hair in the valley.
Right. Well, yeah. That's
as long as he doesn't
the ZZ Top look, rocked by him and Singheiser.
As long as he doesn't schedule like Snyder.
Hey, look, guys, we've been on. I'm sure people don't want to listen to us for 3 hours.
Sure they do.
Maybe they don't want us for an hour or 45 minutes.
They want to go out to dinner with
us. And there's a lot of teams that we didn't get to talk about that we will as the season goes forward. But we want to wrap it up here. I think we could wrap it up with these ice bucket challenges. We kind of started at the top of their show. And let me tell you something. I've been moved by the rest of San Gabriel, how they bought in. And this started for us, at least. Aram and I, Aram called me up and said, Fred, have you looked at your Twitter? I said, no. He goes, look at your Twitter. Look at your Twitter. I read that San Dimas coach Bill Zernico. He was the first in this area that I saw that did the ice bucket, the ALS ice bucket challenge. He called Aram and I out. We went over there. We took it in front of the San Dimas team, and they were great. We called out the rest of the valley, and this has just spread like wildfire. Yeah. I think it kind of shows what this valley is all about. When you think of the whole southern section and all the areas, I don't think anyone, at least through social media and blogs, they have this tight-knit feel that we have, where the coaches feel like they know each other.
Right.
We can joke
the players feel that way. The parents feel that way.
And they're all answering that challenge and having fun with it. And for that, I'm proud. I wrote that, and I know Aaron retweeted. I'm proud to be part of this area. Yeah. That's been a lot of fun, guys. Yep. And keep it going.
Agree, 100%.
While we're doing the show before the season starts.
Right. There's nothing, I've been explaining this all summer to people, there's nothing like the San Gabriel Valley for football. And are we good enough on a scale of the entire Southland to be as I guess popular and interactive as we are? Probably not.
But we could talk smack with any of them.
Yeah, no, we could do that, and the communities really love to go against each other and know this kid since he was 4, and that kid since he was 5, and everyone knows everyone, and it's just outstanding. And like you said, we enjoy the heck out of covering it, and we're ready for another year. And hopefully,
we have great coaches, because people ask
we do have great coaches.
How can you guys say the things you say about these teams out there, or sometimes even kiddingly joking that they're terrible or they're going to get beat?
Right.
It's because I think we have coaches that understand that we're just trying to do a job. We don't hate anybody.
Right.
And that we're trying to make this entertaining, and we want people to debate and talk about it. And we can't do that if we sit here and sugarcoat everything. So
we didn't even talk about the Mission Valley League, man.
We'll get to everyone.
I'm sure
a long season.
Singeyser's going to eat that one up.
Yeah. Good old Mission Valley League, right?
Yeah, Stephen Nava's back, we think. Okay, so everybody, get in the groove now. Like Madonna said, we are going to be...
Madonna?
Madonna. Right, there you go. Yeah. Okay, so we're going to be starting next week with all the things that we usually do, the 2-minute drills, the show on Friday nights after the games, be back here for that. Obviously all the print elements that we usually do. So be paying attention, be ready for those things, because next week, Freddie, it's here, Stevie, it's here, and we're going to be hitting you guys with a lot of comments. So get on those blogs, share your thoughts, tell us where we're wrong, tell us where we're right. I'm sure you're all lined up to do that. But enjoy it, folks, because we're going to be back with you. So get ready, because it's coming now.
Very good.
All right. We'll see you next week.
I'm glad you referenced Madonna before Steve mentioned his big guy, Buddy Holly, because then we were going to go way back and
Buddy Holly
never know who the heck he was talking about it.
Nobody
he said all of my 11, all of my kissing.
He said that'll be the day.